Hello, welcome to our recorded digital citizenship series in partnership with Common Sense Education. The Nebraska School Librarians Association is working with Melissa Cleaver, the Common Sense Education Outreach Manager for the state of Nebraska. We will have several videos available that focus on how school librarians can use common sense education curriculum and other resources to help support their school communities. And today, we are going to focus on the actual K-12 curriculum from Common Sense Education. Thank you again, Melissa, for being with us today.
Oh, I'm excited to be here and always happy to help librarians. Love librarians, they're the best. So I guess we'll go ahead and get started. I think you should be able to see my screen. I just kind of want to, let's see, make sure I'm in presentation mode that I need to be in for us. So to start off, just to kind of get us going here, there is a way to access this presentation because there are going to be some links throughout the presentation and you'll want to have access to this. So this might be a good time to pause the video and just scan this QR code that's on the screen here, or type in this tiny URL and it'll access a PDF that has all the links and this whole entire presentation on it. Whenever you see this little emoji guy down here, that is, whoops, we're going a little too fast. That's a little cue that you might want to pause the video because there might be an activity or some thinking time that you want to allow yourself to have in the video. So with that kind of laid out there, I just want to go ahead and get us started. If you want to get yourself set up, go ahead and pause the video right now and scan that QR code or get that URL set so that you're ready to click on links as we move through this presentation. All right, so here we go. And also another thing I might mention is that this is a great thing to do, maybe a viewing party with some of your colleagues and watch it together so you can have some great conversation with each other. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. As Courtney mentioned, this is creating a culture of digital citizenship. And we're gonna look at this as an introductory session to really look at our digital citizenship curriculum. And we've broken this up into 3 different parts. So if you need a break during this session, there's some natural pause breaks before we move on to other content in this session, or in this particular session today. All right, as mentioned above, my name is Melissa Cleaver and I'm the outreach manager for this area. I wanted to point out my email address here. In the event that you're watching this video and the QR code for some reason is not working for you, please feel free to reach out to me and I will send you that link. And don't forget about our pausing the video when you see our thinking emoji. Okay, and you can also follow me on Twitter, follow Common Sense, and be able to get up-to-date resources at any time. All right. Our goal for today is, we have actually kind of 4 of them. 1 and 2 kind of go hand in hand. We're going to identify really about who Common Sense is a little bit. We're going to understand why we all need digital citizenship plans. And then we're going to look into what and where we can get this curriculum. And then finally, kind of get a little bit into how you can start creating a plan for your own classroom or even be a pivotal person in creating a plan for your building or maybe even your district. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to watch this brief video that's going to kind of give us a little bit about who Common Sense is, if you're not familiar with this organization. Note, you can also find this video at the bottom here.
Or fearful of the technology of the new generation. Maybe there's a reason that there's this apprehension and this fear because maybe we are moving further and further away from our humanity.
When we talk about addiction, we tend to think, oh, this is just happening by accident culturally. Like, what are the kids doing these days? What we miss is that this is happening by design.
They wake up and they just have to get right back to it.
I go on my phone and I'll check my Instagram, Snapchat, Kick, Twitter, Tumblr.
They believe it's one of their human rights to have one of their devices attached to them 24 hours a day.
Seeing actual kids sort of disappear from the world is nothing short of terrifying.
You're more likely to use social media compulsively.
You want to keep on it to keep
getting
the good feelings.
If my parents saw some of the things that I saw on social media, I think they would be very shocked.
It's known as TikTok, settling allegations it violated children's privacy laws.
The attack was teased in advance on social media and live streamed for 17 minutes on Facebook.
We spent $1 million harvesting tens of millions of Facebook profiles as the basis of the algorithms of Cambridge Analytica itself.
And that was a big mistake. And I'm sorry.
This is changing our culture. And this is not a partisan issue. The central goal for us is to do a multi-year campaign that educates parents, kids, and everybody about the addictive quality of cell phones and other devices.
A landmark report has just been released into how kids in the U.S. between 8 and 18 spend their time using media and technology.
Common Sense Media, a charity promoting digital privacy for children, pushed for this new legislation.
I think that it's time for us to have a very important national conversation. You need to educate kids and parents, you need to pass laws, and you also have to hold the industry's feet to the fire.
Details on the next version of Apple's operating system, which will have a number of ways to cut down on screen time.
Recently, Google introduced various digital well-being tools.
As leaders of governments, as decision makers in business, and as citizens, we must ask ourselves, what kind of world do we want to live in? And those of us who believe in technology's potential for good must not shrink from this moment.
We want our students to be great 21st century learners, but also learn how to be safe, how to protect themselves. They just need the tools. They just need a chance, right?
Okay, so if you wanted to watch that video again, down at the bottom of the screen here is the YouTube link. You can go straight to that video if you want to use that for any resources within your trainings, maybe in your building. So that kind of gives an overview about who Common Sense is. We don't need to watch it again. But just to also know that how Common Sense kind of is set up is, one, it is a nonprofit organization, and we kind of have three tiers that we stand on, which is that we rate, we educate, and we advocate. So we have our Common Sense Media platform, which a lot of our parents are very familiar, and if you're interested in going there, you can hover over that icon there at the bottom of the screen. And I just realized I want to make my little laser penny thing so you can see where I'm pointing at. There we go, kind of down here. And then we also have the Common Sense Education. That's where we're going to spend time today. And then there's the Common Sense Kids Action, which is our advocacy platform. But Common Sense Education is where our curriculum is at, and we'll be diving into that here in a moment. And that's the pillar that I work from primarily. All righty. So let's kind of break this down a little bit here, and this would be a great opportunity if you are needing to pause and think a little bit about what does digital citizenship mean to you, and just kind of reflect on that a little bit. Okay, so this is one of those moments you can take and write this down or jot it down. All right. I'm going to go ahead and move on and talk about what does it mean to common sense. And we're going to watch this little brief video about that. And again, down at the bottom is the URL to this video if you would like to access this video later. Okay, so if you're watching closely, you'll notice that there were kind of some themes that were brought up here, and we'll kind of talk about those themes in just a moment here. So We're going to go ahead and jump into kind of talking about what is the culture around media and technology. And I know you as librarians are probably seeing this every day in your libraries and are faced with this, but we're going to kind of look at that a little bit closer and look at some of the impacts and things that are helping shape the culture around media and technology before we get into talking about our content that we have to help address this. So understanding this will help us know what we need to do or what we want to be in regards to this. All right, so we're going to go ahead and if you want to stop and think about what do you want it to be, you can do that, and we're going to move on. Okay, so let's take a look at some statistics here. Some of the things that we know going on within our media and literacy world. Just looking at the ages down here at the bottom of children and the percentage of them having smartphones just from 2015 to 2019, you can see it's greatly increased to that pretty much every 18-year-old has a smartphone of some sort. So that's a huge increase, and we can see it's growing as ages. So this makes a really clear point that this is why the curriculum really needs to start addressing things at a much younger age and not waiting for them to be in middle school or high school before you start talking about digital citizenship. Just like with our kindergartners, we don't wait to talk to them about how to be a good citizen in the classroom and how to behave and act. We start that right away in school. All right, some other statistics to take a look at here, and these all come from our different censuses that Common Sense puts together, so you can always click on this to go get more information. At the bottom of the screen, you can see where this data is coming from. But as you can see here, the amount of screen time is increasing as kids age. So our tweens are at about 4 hours and 44 minutes, and our teens are up to about 7 hours and 22 minutes now. And an interesting note here is that our tweens of higher incomes have a little bit less time on screens, where our teens of lower incomes tend to have a higher amount of screen time. And this might be something that we want to kind of explore and better understand as educators as to what might be causing this and how can we help our lower income homes develop some better balance. It could be, you know, parents are working more and not available, all kinds of different things that could be impacting this. The other thing that we can note here is the mobile devices in a home, and you can see again from 2011 how that's shifted, and this is for children of 0 to 8 years old. That's quite a significant increase, and that's talking about having their own tablet or just having a tablet in the home or a smartphone in the home that the 0 to 8 year old has access to. Okay, and that amount of time, as you can see, has tripled. So these are kind of some staggering numbers that we really need to be aware of and understand that this is why it's very important that we start developing these digital citizenship skills that we're going to address here. Okay, talking about our teens and social media, as you can see here, what teens say from some of our research is that 72% of them believe that tech companies manipulate users to spend more time on their devices. So these teens are aware that that is happening. So that can be leveraged, of course, you know, by teaching them about, okay, you know this is happening, what can you do? And that's where some of our curriculum can come help with that. And this was some other interesting statistics of looking at from 2012 to 2018 of what type of communication is happening with our teens. And you can see the uptick, and I'm sure that if we were to measure this now in 2020, this would have a huge difference, especially under our current situation with the pandemic. Okay. All right, so this is another opportunity for one of those pause and thinks. I want you, before I click the button next, to maybe pause and think here. These are the incidents of bullying and harassment that have occurred in our schools from 2015 to 2017, as it says here. And I want you to note the different color bands and the percentages here and see if you could predict which grade level goes with which color band. So again, this is one of those great pause and think moments. And I'm going to go ahead and reveal now if you haven't paused and thought. make sure you pause first. Okay, so as you can see there, 14% of our K through 2 or K through 2nd grade have incidents of bullying and harassment happening in an online place. I mean, that's just kind of staggering, more than our 3rd through 5th graders. And then you can see the number definitely rises as we get to 6th grade on up. This is, of course, when students tend to have more phones. Parents are getting phones for their middle schoolers as they're going off. But that's kind of an interesting number to note. All right, so now some other statistics about parents and their teens keeping mobile devices close at night. This becomes really important to note because this is impacting sleep patterns for our students as their brain is developing. And we want to maybe help create some healthier choices within our students by helping them understand this. And so as you can see there, 1 out of 3 teens and 1 out of 4 parents say that they have sleep interrupted because of the notifications. So again, having understanding about digital citizenship and things that they can do to kind of take hold of their responsibility with this and not let the technology rule them, but let them rule their technology, so that we can ensure that kids are really getting the adequate amount of sleep that they need for that brain development, so that when they're in class the next day, they're ready to go. All right, so what really this comes down to is that we can no longer separate our digital life from our real life. They really are intertwined so much. And that we all have to be ready to identify cyberbullying, sexting, digital well-being, fake news. These are all pieces that every one of us needs to, as educators, be aware of, and parents really. And so this is how we can help our students be able to be best engaged and connected and creative as 21st century learners. Okay, and it's important to note here that our curriculum and lessons need to move beyond just an individualistic consequence-based focus, but really getting into the ethical and civic-oriented thinking, help them become critical thinkers. And we're gonna dive into that next. So this is a great point if you need a place to pause and you wanna come back to the rest of this recording. We'll be moving into our section. We've just finished our who and why, and we'll be moving on to our next part of the what and the where. Okay. All right, welcome back. If you paused, if not, we're moving on, and we're now going to jump into the second part of this, where we're getting into that what and where. Okay, so our digital citizenship curriculum, if you're not aware of this, we worked on this in partnership with Project Zero, which I think is an important thing to point out, and that's part of the Harvard Graduate School. So this is really research-based. It is K through 12. It also has award-winning curriculum. That's always important. And another key note here is that it is free to schools. Common Sense, as I mentioned, is a nonprofit organization, but we really value the importance that we need to have these resources available to everyone. There's also a lot of family engagement resources. We have multiple languages, Spanish and English, but then also some other resources in a variety of other languages as well. Our materials are available on the Google Suite, so they correspond with that, but it's easily converted into Microsoft 365 and can be downloaded as PowerPoints or Word documents as well. And then here's a really important one for all of you in library, is that it aligns with the U.S. education standards for AASL. And I'll point that out when we kind of dive into the website a little bit. Okay, so let's take a look at the 6 themes that we have. So Common Sense has divided this based on that research of 6 themes. We have media and well balance, relationship communication, privacy and security, cyberbullying, digital drama, digital footprint and identity, and news and media literacy, which I know is a favorite of a lot of librarians. So let's see. Some things to also kind of note here. As you look here, this is a link in the middle of the page. Oh, that is not a link that we need for this. Somehow that got on here, but we'll just ignore that. But here's the what the web page somewhat looks like. There are videos that correspond with our curriculum. There's family engagement activity sheets that are found on one side of the curriculum. Customizable presentations, so again, you can make some adaptations a little bit. student materials in Spanish, in-class activities that you can download, and there's just the easy implementation online lesson plan. So you have a slide deck ready to go, or a PowerPoint that you can just jump right into and use. So a really easy lift for you as educators that makes it easy to integrate. Okay, before we jump into looking at it, I just kind of want to lay out the pedagogy that goes behind this curriculum. And what that research found is that we identified that there's kind of these rings of responsibility that we need to help our students connect to. So they need to understand who they are, and that's the self in the middle, and understand where they connect with their community and how that then expands out to the world. And when we move into an online space, those 3 different rings really start to expand and rapidly you can access. Whereas when you're a child living in your own neighborhood at a kindergarten, you might have just a very limited surrounding that you have access to. So based on that, it becomes really important to identify how you have a role to play in those 3 different spaces as an individual in our society. So what our approach has done is kind of broken these down into some really authentic activities that help engage our students into recognizing those 3 rings. We have our thinking routines, and we're going to kind of look at that a little bit closer. There's image analysis that helps them identify how to slow down and seek facts, personal challenges, scenarios, sentence starters, and again, engaging videos. And as you notice, these blue highlighted areas in this area about our authentic activities, these all correspond with what we call our habits of mind. And the habits of mind are really integrated into every lesson that we teach, because we believe that this is about really changing behavior and helping students recognize that they need to develop habits, good, healthy habits. Just like we want to teach our students how to behave and interact on a playground or act with their peers, we want to do this in an online thing. So to be able to do that, first step is really helping kids understand that they need to slow down and self-reflect. And this is just good practice in anything, but online especially. Next thing is to help them seek facts and evidence. And this really does correspond with us in library services about how do you seek facts and evidence, and having them take the moment to think about seeking the facts in the online environment. The next step with the habit of mind that we want to help cultivate in our curriculum is considering others' perspectives. Because once you can think of how others are receiving things, then you can, and put yourself in their shoes, you have a little bit better ability to think before you start posting something that might be hurtful or harmful. The other thing is to help envision options. This is really important as students are engaging with others online, and they're seeing things maybe from only one perspective, or sometimes they see things in just a black and white perspective and don't see that there are multiple options, especially when students' feelings might be hurt, or things, they sometimes get drastic in their thinking. And so if we help them create the habit of mind that there are many options and solutions to a situation, then that helps them not feel so drastic, especially in those middle school years. And then finally, taking action and really thinking what a positive action that they can do. What are things they can do to control their digital lives and doing that. So again, our curriculum is embedded with all these habits of mind, helping them explore those habits of mind and start building those skill sets within their own lives. All right, so enough talking for me. I want to give you a chance to go ahead and explore our resources now. So we're going to pause in just a moment, but let me kind of walk you through a little bit, and I'm going to take us to our website just to kind of show you around a little. But you're going to explore a particular grade level if you'd like. Just pick one because there's a lot there. And because we're library media services, we're going to go ahead and dive into the news and media literacy theme and look at that curriculum specifically. You're welcome to go ahead and dive into the other 5 themes if you would like. But here we go. So before you do that, and before you do your pausing, I'm going to open up this curriculum. So give me just a second while I click on our resources here. And I need to change my point into a pointer again. Okay. let's see if I can get this to open now. And I'm going to show you where this kind of lands us to. When you click straight on that link, it will take you to this page here. This is the landing page for our curriculum. If you're just coming to our website, you can click on For Educators, go into here on this toolbar here under Digital Citizenship, and you can go straight to lesson plans from there. But that link in the presentation takes you straight to the curriculum. You can see the 6 themes. What's nice is you can click on whatever theme. We'll go ahead and go to News Media Literacy, and it will lay out the scope and sequence for K all the way through 12th grade. And then you can click into whatever grade level you would like to kind of explore. I'm going to take one right in the middle here, and we'll go with like 4th grade. Another thing to point out, anytime you see this icon here, this tells you that there's a video associated. Maybe we'll go to that one, that way we can see that. And we can take a look at the curriculum then. Now, one thing that you'll need to note is to be able to access the actual lesson plans, you do need to log in. And if you don't have an account, you can create one. This is a free account. It's just a way that Common Sense is able to see the traffic of educators' use of the curriculum. It is free curriculum, so you can just access it. I'm going to go ahead and quickly get signed in. If you have a Cleaver district, you can sign in through your Cleaver portal most likely, or have your school set it up in that way. And as you notice now, it shows me up here with my profile, and I'm logged in. As I said, that will then access the full lesson for you so you can take a look. You'll get an overview of the lesson. Just recently released is the new layout that we have our what students will be able to do. So it lays out the expectations or the objectives of the lesson. You also see some of the key vocabulary, and if you want to take a look at definitions, you can click here. You can also see how the ASL standards are right here, and it shows you which standards this aligns with. Look at all those. That's amazing, right? On the right side is where you'll see the resources that you can access that align with that particular lesson. And then in here is where you can kind of dive into how the lesson is laid out. Okay, and you can also print as a PDF. Any of these you click on is how it's going to open up into into the Google Suite, and you'll be able to open and utilize the lessons there and download them. For example, if I click on lesson slides, I can pick which language, say open, and then once I'm in here, I can work straight from here if this is good for me. Otherwise, if you need to download it, I can just hit download and download as a Microsoft PowerPoint, a PDF. You can make a copy of this so if you're in a Google Suite, so it saves to yours. And then you can make adjustments if you want to change the order of things, as long as you just maintain the common sense recognition of whose work this is. But they do make these slides so that you can make it so it fits your timeline and that sort of thing. Okay, so I am going to let you now pause here and go ahead and explore some of this for a few minutes while I get back to our PowerPoint, and we will continue on. Okay. All right, so hopefully you had a good deep dive into the curriculum, and you can now have a better understanding of where things are at and understand where you can maybe identify some of those habits of mind that are woven into the curriculum. Okay, but I'm just going to point out a few things in case you missed some of these. We have family tip sheets and family activities aligned with each lesson, and this is a great way to get your parents involved and engaged. And knowing that we're going to be having likely a lot more remote learning happening from the home, it might be important to get your parents on board. And we'll kind of go deeper into that in one of our other series with family engagement. There are also some interactive games that accompany the lessons. There's Digital Passport and Digital Compass. I won't dive into these, but if you are on the PDF, if you hover over either of these, it'll take you straight to that resource and you can look at it. And this is a nice activity that you can accompany with the lesson, or you might do this on its own as an activity that you can have students learn a little bit more. Like some of them are about passwords. These ones kind of have scenarios that are set up for those grade levels that they might encounter at that age group. A new resource just this last year that has paired up with our curriculum is Social Media Test Drive. This comes out of research from Cornell University that Common Sense did in collaboration with them. And this was designed and developed. And I want to take a moment to kind of show you this a little bit because this is such a new resource. To access this, you can go here and click on it and it'll take you straight to the resource. Otherwise, down here at the bottom, this is a teacher's guide that kind of walks through how you might use it. You can take a moment and read through my slide here that has some additional information about this, but I'm going to show you just a little bit into it, give it a little sneak peek so you can take some time to explore. So clicking on Social Media Test Drive, that will take you straight to the website. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. Here we go. So as you can see here, this is their website. And you can try out the modules by clicking here. If you click on this, you can see there's a variety of topics. If you are with me for our privacy one, you can see some of that around the privacy one. There's social media privacy. When we go into our news and social media session at a later date, we'll dig into that maybe a little bit. But right now, we're going to look at social media habits. This is a new one that's just been added. And once you click in there, I just kind of want to show you what this looks like and how it kind of mimics being in an actual social media piece. At the very beginning, there's a few other screens you click through that kind of outline the vocabulary that's going to be used, but then the students come in here and they kind of follow these prompts. And so they read a question and click on it. They can interact with things in here, so they can like things and scrolling down. So it just looks a lot like an actual social media account, and they follow through the scenarios and work on some activities to learn some skills about how to navigate and how to best use their social media. So that's why it's called Social Media Test Drive. So it's kind of like getting your learner's permit before you actually start engaging in social media. So a great resource for parents to have their kids use maybe before they start getting their smartphones and using social media and that sort of thing. All right, so now that we've kind of looked through that, if you want to pause and explore, go ahead. Otherwise, we are going to go ahead and move on. Okay. To wrap up this section about the what and the where, there is this video if you would like to actually see a lesson in action. This comes from one of our very own librarians here in the state of Nebraska. She's at, it's Erin Solheim from Walnut Hill Elementary in Omaha Public Schools. And if you want to see how one of these lessons kind of works, and you can also have an opportunity to really hear from the kids because they talk about what they gained out of that lesson. So I am not going to play that video, but if you are following along with the resource, you can click on this link right here and go ahead and review that video. Okay, and just to wrap up some of our resources, one other thing I want to draw your attention to is that in addition to the curriculum, we also have these toolkits, and there's one that's been recently created called News and Media Literacy Resource Center. And we'll spend some more time in that session at a later date where we'll dive into that, but I just want to point out some of these other different ones, some that follow character strengths, some other resources here. And again, you can click this link down at the bottom of the screen to go directly to the toolkits and go explore those if you'd like. All right, with that said, that brings us to another great point. If you're ready for another little break here, go ahead and pause. And if you need to come back to this at a later time to finish up this session, go ahead and this is a good place to pause. All right, moving on for those that are ready to just plow on through. Okay, so we've addressed the what and the where. Now we're going to talk a little bit about how you can start doing this and what are some benefits from doing it. One of the things I want to make sure that you all are very aware of is that Common Sense offers a recognition program. So when you go through and do any of these lessons and work, you have the opportunity to receive recognition for that. And that recognition gives you the opportunity to receive a badge, which, you know, who doesn't like a badge to kind of show the things that you've done? I know all of us teachers love to get a pat on the back, and this is a way that you can kind of shout it out there that you deserved a pat on the back. But I think more importantly, what going through and getting recognized does is helps identify you as somebody to your families that you've been committed to teaching these essential digital citizenship skills. And it also helps your students know that you are focusing on the well-being in your school community. And so this is a really important thing, especially as we know many of our students are going to have much more digital devices in their hands. And if we can share with our families and communities that we're taking the steps to really make sure we're safely getting our kids engaged with those digital devices, this is one way to do that. So there are 3 different levels or ways that you can get recognition. You can have an educator recognition, which each of you can do very easily. There's school recognition and district recognition. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the recognition, but with the recognition steps, there's basically you do a learn. So like attending this session today counts as a learn. To learn more about what you need to do to what all is needed in the learn stage, you can go to this document as an educator or this planning document if you want to set something up and create it for your whole school or even district. And what's nice about is that these recognition steps, after you do a learn, you can then do the do. That's teaching the lesson, sending home resources to your parents. And then finally, there's a very brief reflection. It used to be, for those that maybe are familiar with Common Sense, there used to be a lot more artifacts that you had to collect and share. There is no longer a need for that. It's simply going into the application, clicking on what you've done, and then writing a very brief reflection of how this has impacted your classroom or your school. Okay, I just want to really quick give you a peek at that educator, that link that shows that this is that roadmap, and it walks through sharing what you need to do to go through the learn stages. As I said, this counts as a recorded series or webinar, so you could count this. And you can look through here about what you need to do to teach it, how you get your families engaged, and then it gives you a space that you could write up what you want to reflect, and then you can copy and paste that. And then here's the link for the application. So it's really easy. Our application just ended for last year. So you are at a perfect time of watching this, starting up for this next school year. You can go ahead and get this going and start to apply for next year. All righty. So next step is creating that culture. And I just want to kind of talk about that a little bit. So if you're really trying to figure out how do you want to change the narrative in your school about digital citizenship, what we have also available to every teacher as well as school is an implementation guide. You can click on it here, but simply the implementation guide has 3 simple steps: a plan, implement, and evaluate. And to help facilitate this and make this session a little bit more interactive, what I'd like you to do is kind of start considering, as we go through these 3 phases, ideas and questions that you'd like to ask. And at the end of me going through these 3 phases, there's going to be a Padlet that you can go in and take a look at what others have already posted, and you can add your own ideas. And so it's a great way that we can be a community of learners together about how to really implement this and do this work together. All right, so the first stage is the plan stage. And within this plan stage, some things that maybe help you with this is that you want to first start with assessing what the needs are for your students and really thinking about each school has kind of its own, or each classroom has its own primary needs for its students. So considering what that might be, how will you find out what that is? These are some questions to help guide you through this. And really consider doing some family needs assessment. And again, in our family series, we'll have some of those resources available for you. The next one is aligning whatever you're doing to things going on in your classroom. Now, if you're talking at a school or a district level, you want to align it with those district initiatives. But within your classroom, you can easily find out how to align to the curriculum. Back a few slides under our activity, when we were exploring the curriculum, there was a link that showed how it integrates with social studies and math and various different curricular areas. And we also noticed how it applies to the standards for library. All right. And then finally, you want to get some buy-in, and maybe that's identifying who is it that you need to have buy-in. Is it other people in your school? Is it maybe the parents? Having conversations like that. If you're doing this just in your classroom, it's maybe even getting the buy-in of your students. Okay, so that's the plan phase. The implement phase, this is where you get training for educators, for yourself. This might be your own training. So really identifying who needs to be training. If you're taking hold of this, you're doing that right now by attending this session. But maybe there's some training that you want to help provide for your parents as well. And that's where Common Sense has resources to be able to help that, facilitate that. Teaching your students, really thinking about how does this instruction fit into your school year? Is it a one and done thing, or is it something that you kind of integrate and touch point throughout the year so that they have those habits and minds really developing? So those are decisions you get to make. And then finally, the engaging families piece. What are the needs and concerns that are unique to your parent population, and considering that? Okay, that's the implementation phase. And just some other things to think about. Some schools have social emotional learning objectives. They also might have MTSSB or behavior things. There might be state laws, and E-rate is often tied to making sure that you have a digital citizenship plan. So some of those reasons might be ways that can leverage why you need to implement school-wide or even district-wide. All right, finally, the evaluate. This is where you're going to measure how is it successful, and determining what that might look like for you in your school classroom. You can make that as elaborate or as simple as you need it to be. And then really celebrating the work that you're doing. You know, when you earn your recognition, that's one way to celebrate, but there's many ways to celebrate. And when you go to that Padlet here in a moment, you're going to see some really great ideas from others that have worked through this process. And then finally, reflect. You know, think about at the end of the year how you're going to tweak it so that the next year you can make sure it's fresh. All right, so now we've gone through those 3 stages. Here's an opportunity for you to go to this Padlet and take a look at it and see what others have also mentioned, and then add your own ideas and questions that you want to put in there. And feel free to respond to other people's questions if you have ideas of how to respond to that. And also just be sure to check back often, because as some of you librarians go through this resource, you can see what other librarians are saying, and that might be helpful for your PLN. All right, and just one last thing, just if we're talking about integration of how a school or a district might integrate, this is a video from OPS's Library Services director was in here and shared how information literacy is digital literacy. And this is just talking about how one district approaches digital literacy across their district. So you can watch that video of how they implement. Okay, and we're not going to watch that right now. All right, so what have we learned? Hopefully you've walked away here and understanding that there's not a one-size-fits-all approach for digital citizenship. That the curriculum is very adaptable, and that you can use the pieces that work for you inside your classroom, your time constraints, all those different things. The other thing is understanding that building a digital citizenship culture requires that pack versus a lone wolf. Lone wolf being the librarian or tech coordinator doing something isn't always the best, but you really it might work better if you have a team to really implement it. And that might including even parents as part of that team and students. And then finally, planning and leadership is just as important for student instruction. So look at how this fits into those bigger puzzle pieces in school alignment. How does this reflect or support what's going on at your school or your district level? All right, with that, that was our digital citizenship curriculum overview. Again, my name is Melissa, and if you have an opportunity, I would love for you to take a moment. One, just to know that I'm here to support you. If you are out in any part of Nebraska and have questions and want help with your implementation plans, that is part of my role. Even though I am here in Omaha Public Schools, I am here as the outreach manager as part of this grant to support the state of Nebraska as well. So feel free to reach out to me. And I would love to get your feedback on this session today. So if you would take a moment to do this Survey Monkey and scan that QR code or go to that link and just fill out a quick survey for me about this. And also know that beyond this, thank you on this presentation, there is an appendix for lesson examples. If you want to dive in and take a look at there, feel free to go ahead and take a look at that. I'm not going to go through it on our recording now, but that concludes our session for today.
Thank you so much, Melissa, again, for being with us today and for sharing the information about the resources from Common Sense Education. And we will have 2 more in this series coming up. One is on news media literacy and one will be on parent engagement. So we will let you all know when those come out. All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.